I'd just like to start, welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
And if you would, could you start with your story? What happened there in Cambodia and what happened to your family?
1975, the whole entire world kind of understand what was going on in Cambodia, where the Khmer Rouge took over the capital city, Phnom Penh, 1975, April 17, 1975 to be exact. At the time, I either was 5 or 6 years old, so it's quite a young age. You kind of enjoy being the kid at 5 or 6 years old, running around and not worry about anything else. As a 1975 came on, the whole thing kind of chaotic. I mean, lack of a better term. And then we're about 6 months later on, I lost my father. Within 3 days after my father's passed away, because too many things could be starvation, not abuse, but more torturing and malnutrition from the soldier of Pol Pot, the genocide soldiers. 3 days after my father's died, my youngest brother was born. And 3 days after my youngest brother was born, my grandfather, my father's mom died. So it just within 6 days of that period of time, two of my family members passed away. So from 1975 to 1979, 3 years, 8 months, and 23 days. That's based on the history and written in the book. Those are hell, I would say. The life, the, I don't think we were human beings at that time. Just the way how we treat, the way we were forced to be out there, the way we were given food to eat. Well, actually, there's no food to eat. Literally just a little watery with a couple grain of rice, and you work from dusk to dawn. For me, I wouldn't say fortunate, but for me as a young kid at that age, they were forced to work in the farm with the animals, look after the animal, after the pig, and weed the grass from the yams farm. Those are the stuff we were forced to from morning until at nighttime. Coming home, you're all exhausted, and the food that you have not even sustain any energy.
So this AAPI Heritage Month, right? What does AAPI mean to you? This word, this concept.
For me, I'm an Asian, but I want to identify myself as Cambodian American because Thai, Hmong, Vietnam, Laos, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Japanese, we all came from a different background, different culture, different tradition, our way of doing things totally different. And for I don't want to say the policy maker to conglomerate everything under API. I'm not taking very lightly on those because every ethnic struggle more than the other, especially within the Cambodian community. Given what we went through from 1975 to 1979, those are something I don't think anybody could ever imagine what my family and the people, my people went through. There's no other word to describe those events. So I think that we need to look deeper into within the Asian community, kind of separated by itself.
The reason why I ask this question is because I don't identify myself as AAPI either. And, maybe that has something to do with me being 1.5 generation. And I think so are you. You actually immigrated here, as a refugee at 21, you said, right?
Almost 21 years old. Yeah.
It took a while for you to get here, from where you were, and then spending most of your youth in the refugee camp elsewhere in another country too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very different, and Asian, communities have such a discrepancy with status, financial, economic, and all that differences, maybe they'll
Absolutely. Well,
be.
I'm glad I'm not the only one feel that way though.
So do you have any other preferred way to identify yourself? You said as Cambodian.
I am Cambodian American.
Okay.
Yes, yes. There's no other way around it. I mean, I'm not considering myself AAPI. I don't know what even, you know, relate to me, but yes, Cambodian American or just Cambodian.
So as successful as you are now, right, in the city of Long Beach, like who doesn't know Steve
Mm-hmm.
Meng? And do you at times struggle with your identity in some ways? If so, how? Being the first, or what we may call 1.5 generation American, what was your experience also of going through like American public school systems and higher education?
I was ashamed of being Cambodian.
Mm.
Um, a simple fact is that I try to hide my identity as much as I can, given that what we went through. And so for the first part of I would say for the first 6, 7 years, most, that I try to avoid speak my own native tongue. I try to avoid to associate myself with the Cambodian by itself. Um, why? I don't know. It just we feel like Cambodians not being represent, Cambodians not being recognized, or I don't want to say that we are less than any other Asian community or other Asian ethnicity. So yes, I did have struggled quite some time during my early years in the United States.
Mhm. Do you feel like Cambodian people were stereotyped in a different ways than other, Asian Pacific Islanders?
Well, stereotyping could be one thing. The other could that we came from a disenfranchised, this
This franchise.
enfranchised, yeah, yeah, community. The genocide that we went through. We being called different names, because trying to survive, we'll eat just about everything we could get our hands on. And those are things been stereotyped within the community itself. We came from a very lowest education because we are farmers. Given that my mom at third grade level, my grandmother cannot read or write her own native tongue. So those, I would say, the word shame is not, the right way to describe. But I said I was ashamed of being Cambodian at the time. Yes.
Mm. Because of the US policy impacting neighboring Asia and the direct result of Vietnam War and the fall of Phnom Penh by Khmer Rouge, there's still millions of Cambodian people living in diaspora, right?
Mm-hmm.
My understanding, and as the film has shown, is that Long Beach is like the second largest Cambodian community outside of Paris and Cambodia, right? Um, what impact do you see this history having on the well-being of your people?
Coming to the state at a very at a at that age, adult, the challenge was just the culture itself. Um, Secondly, the language, because when I came, I don't speak any English at all. I went to school, private school, pay here and there, to try to learn the best you can, given the limited resources. So it was a very, really challenging for me personally, that I had to study a lot harder than most those folk that came at a young age.
Mhm.
Besides the high school that I had to attend for the last 2 years, I had to put myself to adult school to get enough credit to graduate from high school and move on to college. So my regular school does not start from 8 until 3 o'clock. My school starts from 8 until 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Where did you get that motivation?
The motivation basically before I got interviewed by the INS, or I promised myself and my family and also my brother-in-law, my cousin husband, who I promised him that the first thing I want, if I were to give a chance to go to the United States, I want to go to school. I
Mhm.
want to be the first family member to be educated, a graduate from college. Those are stuff that I processed to myself, to my cousin, but I struggled for those. It took me 10 years to graduate from college. I struggled. But every time when I fall low, I had to remind myself, this is what you have promised yourself. You got to fight through. And I did. It took me quite some time to get to school and everything else. I did everything I could just to put myself to school and graduate from Cal State Long Beach.
So, so looking back, what other important factors helped you? So you're talking about the value, valuing education, right? What other factors helped you in order to become who you are and to be where you are now?
The fact is, I would say my grandmother, who passed away in 2003. She was my mentor, my role model, my mother, my father, just everything. Because given that when my dad died at a young age, most of the time I stayed with her. Even though during the genocide, I'm pretty much next to her constantly, unless I was pulled away from her, go to do some other stuff. Even though given after the fall of the Khmer Rouge, Vietnam invade Cambodia, from 1979 until 1979 until 1988, 89, I would still live with my grandmother. Just me, my grandmother, my youngest brother, and my uncle. With my mom has her own family, she was forced to remarry during the genocide, Khmer Rouge. She had her own family, had 2 kids and 1 stepdaughter. So she have her own family. I have my own family with my grandmother. We just happened to come to the United States all together, and then when we get to live all in one roof, one roof.
Yeah. Is there anything that wasn't helpful at school, in the community?
There was a lot of temptation. There was a lot of temptation. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here try to say that I'm a really good person and really focused. No, there's a lot of temptation. In the 90s, there was a lot of gangbangs within the community. I got recruited to join the gang. I did ask to join the gang. I did ask to go hang out with them. As the age of 21, what do you know?
So you're very involved, now, and an integral part of the fabric of this community, Little Cambodia, right? Off of Anaheim and Long Beach at large, really. But what are things people get right in their understanding of Cambodian community?
What other things? You know what? I don't think there's a wrong or right thing. People's always mistake us for Chinese or Vietnamese because our light complexion. I guess Cambodian weren't on the map as much as other country. So we always under the radar. It's always under the radar until I believe, well, even though the Killing Field movie about the genocides and everything, but it wasn't really much speak or being on a public platform to allow other community to understand who we are, where we came from, the struggle that we faced during the time. So a lot of people always think Cambodian part of Chinese. And also the folk who came to America, like myself, as I said earlier, we were ashamed to being Cambodian, given our background. Oftentimes we hide our identity. Oftentimes we don't truly tell, who we really are. Until I joined the Cambodian Club. I was the president, was the secretary, was the VP, you name it, all the position. And I started to talk more about who I am. Feel like, I am Cambodian. There's no other way I want to be beside being a Cambodian.
So do you feel like parents and grandparents nowadays are speaking about genocide and that being part of your identity, community identity? to
Um,
the youth, the younger generations, or that's still something that's held as shameful and not shared?
I would say the older generation, like my mom, as I, speak real openly in the video, my mom doesn't really speak much about those because she lost so much. She
Mm.
lost everything. Her sibling, her father, her husband, her kids. It's I don't know if the older adults speak much about those at all. Even though they do, they are struggle to open up. But some other who are well educated, that came to America right after, they willing to share their experience because they want that to be out there to the public. They want to be out there to their children. I speak to my children all the time about where I came from, what I went through. But for those who have a really limited education for farmers, they don't want to talk about those.
I just went to this lecture also of some two people who are doing research about sort of refugee experience of the family. Uh, One person was from South Korea, North Korea, maybe. Yeah, I think he was South Korea actually, and then the other person was from Thailand. No, she was from Laos. The
Okay.
family was from Laos, right? And you know, in the Asian peninsula, they both had very different, but familial, you know, history wise, had similar experience of immigrating to the US.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working with elders right now to do some research about qualitative research about stories, you know, that they may have. And there's one thing that they mentioned, which was about the virtue or some, you know, aesthetic sense of uh, honoring the silence and how that's important, that you know it's a western thought to kind of pry things out and have people to just talk it out, you know, but they felt that it was important to just honor the silence if they want to hold on to that silence.
Mm.
Just wanted to get your maybe opinions about it with Cambodian people with a lot of trauma too.
I guess we lost hope. We lost hope given that we're living so long. We see people coming in, they gone to a better place, a better future. And for my family and other, it was like, this is it. We're gonna go back to where we came from, and the struggle start all over again.
What does home mean to you?
Home means a place when you come to rest after a long day at work, after you go out and about.
Mhm.
You are at your comfort zone. You are able to relax, and be with your family. That's what home is all about to me.
So it's not really couched in which country or nationality, you know, but it's where your family is.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
So, do you have any hopes for the future of Cambodia Town here in Long Beach?
I do, I do. For me personally, I might be worth a lot of thought if I were to say this. I want I want our elders in the community to step back a little bit. Let our younger folks step in. They gonna make a lot of mistakes, but that's how they're gonna learn. We have our culture and tradition where elders have every right to do everything, even though they know it's right, but they always right. No, even though they are wrong, but they always think they are right. And I would like that. I know what I'm saying. It does not sit well with a lot of elders in the community. And for me, I don't mind because I'm speaking the fact. I'm being straightforward. I would love to see our elders step back for a little bit, bring in some younger folk who just graduated from college or anything. Give them the opportunity to make a mistake.
Yeah, because otherwise they wouldn't stay. They wouldn't stay
They
here,
would,
would they? They would
they
just
would,
get successful on their own and move away, wouldn't they?
yeah, yeah. So the opportunity for the younger folks to come in and be part of the community. Don't count them out because the way they think is different from ours. Don't discredit them because they are just graduates from college. Don't discredit because they're just a high school student. Give them the same respect as you would give a respect to anybody else. That's what I'm hoping for, and I hope for a younger generation, include my kids. I hope that they are once they out from school and everything successful. I hope that they come back to the community, give it back what the community have been given to them for the entire life.
Mhm.
And I say this to all of the Cambodian American who is born here in the state.
So finally, how can members of the Long Beach community, like including the guidance center, folks, right, support the Cambodian community? In particular, do you have any message for the providers of mental health services on behalf of Cambodian population here in Long Beach?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to insert a little bit about culture and stigma
Yeah.
within our culture
Oh,
itself.
please.
We did speak briefly about this. For me, especially for elder, they are having a hard time to share their personal life. From where we came from where they came from, telling some other about their mental health, it's only a light bulb given you are crazy.
Mm.
Because when you are crazy, people don't want to deal with you. But with our elders, they don't fully understand about mental health. When mental health does not mean that you are crazy. Mental health could be that you are stressing out from work, stressing out from financial, family, children struggle in school. Um, could be anything, or it could be what they went through as a child during the genocide and the flashbacks there. Those are stuff, but they not fully understand. So hopefully within the members of the community, whether guidance center, any other organization would like to get involved, just make sure that you have all those stuff in place. Either have someone who speak the same, not necessarily speak the language, but understand the culture pretty well. It would be really helpful for those who from the same background who will talk them directly,
Mhm.
and don't try to put yourself as a above them at all. Just be like one of them. Be cordial, be respectful. Sometimes they don't know what they went through. Just to be there to listen to them. So those are stuff I just want to open up. But for all the providers out there, basically the message that I would have, get to understand those elders. Listen to this story. They may not be able to tell you a complete sentence, a complete full detail, but listen to what they're saying.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for the privilege to interview you and for you to share your story with the Guidance Center folks.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.